Okay, yeah, so with serving, um, obviously God calls us to serve, He calls us to use our gifts to serve people. And I mean, we see it in 1 Peter 4, where it says we must be hospitable and love one another with unfailing love and use our spiritual gifts to His glory. The Bible says, do everything to the glory of God, whether you eat or drink. And this is not something that's often spoken about in terms of young adults. I feel like serving is it's a term that's like disregarded. And what are your thoughts on serving good?
Yeah, so I would say serving, yeah, I think we all know that like if you can serve God and use your talents to serve in the church, it's a good thing. And like you said, it's quite disregarded. Like a lot of people are just there at church for the vibes or whatever it is. And it's not a
Yeah,
bad thing, like if you're gonna try and find, we were just speaking about community. If you're gonna try and find community somewhere, the church is a good place to go and find it. But I think it's important to also remember why we're there, right? We're at church to serve God and to bring glory to His name.
yeah,
And if you can use your talents to serve, then I think you should definitely go for it. In fact, I think we're obligated to, right? Like it's not just, oh, I don't,
yeah.
I want to serve because I like it, versus, oh, if I don't feel like it, I'm not going to do it. It's like it's not about you; it's about serving God, and I think
It's
it's
about
important
God.
to
Yeah,
do that.
it's good.
Yeah, and I guess one thing I would have wanted to ask is, what do you think of like? I guess this is just a phenomenon in terms of church in general nowadays. Is that like I've noticed a lot? Like, obviously, I still listen to them because it's different with like listening to, like say you listen to Elevation Church or whatever it is, and like the sermons are quite shallow and you're being led astray and whatever. When it comes to music, I've
Mm,
noticed that a lot of the music, like again, Elevation worship, like Hillsong worship, Maverick City music, whatever it is, I'm like more lenient when it comes to that because again, I'm just listening to the music to worship God.
yeah,
But I have noticed that for a lot of people, it is quite similar to the church sermons in general with like mega churches, where you've noticed that a lot of people are there kind of for like their own glory, right? Like it's a very fine line between
sure.
like, say, for example, yeah, like let's talk about the main thing, right? You're singing, right? Worship. It's kind of a fine line between worshiping God and then you like kind of trying to make yourself look good. What do you
Mm.
think about like that topic?
Yeah, I think people like what you're saying. Yeah, with mega churches, I think the whole point of serving is for Him. That's why you're on stage. You might be the most talented person in the world, but none of that matters when you serve and worship. All the attention and praise, it gets to a lot of people's heads, the fame, all of that. You see that happen all the time, like articles and scandals, this, that, whatever. But first and foremost, that's what serving's for. And I mean, I listen to uh Hillsong, listen to Maverick,
Yeah,
and as you're
same.
saying, like, it's exactly like you listening to it because it's worship. That's what it is. And what I will say is like also the lyrics as well. Like sometimes like you gotta sing knowing what you're singing. Because I feel like also sometimes we just sing for the sake of it and we're not really like, into it. We're not really feeling it. Um, but yeah, in terms of worship in that sense with all these mega churches and worship leaders and stuff like that, it needs to go back down to the roots and why you actually do it and why you're serving in the first place. So
Okay. Yeah, I mean that was the one main question I could think about when it comes to serving. And
yeah.
I guess I guess we could speak about the many different ways of serving. What is like your
Mm.
favorite way of serving in the church? Because there are so many things people can do.
Yeah, so I think it's in 1 Peter 4:11. It says that if you're good at speaking, you speaking to serve God, if you're good at helping people, if you're good emotionally with people, like stuff like that. I think when we think of serving, we kind of categorize it into, oh, you in the worship team or you in the kids' church kind of thing, or whatever, like something like that. It's kind of like there's set roles, but there's so many ways that you can serve the church, the church not being the building, being the people. Because I mean,
Yeah.
it's not just that you're serving in church, it's that you're serving wherever you go. You're supposed to be living a Christ-like life and doing the will of God in everything that you do. And so, I mean, if we're talking particularly in church, because I think that's what you're asking, right?
Yes.
Like if you're involved in the church, yeah. So obviously there's, if you're musically gifted, that kind of thing. If God's giving you that gift, obviously you'd be in the worship team. If you're good with people, you could be involved in like connect groups or home cells, that kind of thing. Um, if you have a hospital, a spirit of hospitality, okay, like you're good with people, stuff like that. Um, maybe with kids, particularly, you can serve in a kids ministry, that kind of thing. So, I mean, your gifts could be used anywhere. And also, maybe like you'll discover like you have some spiritual gifts, in you. Maybe you just think that you're only hospitable, but if you go somewhere else, it's like, oh, okay, now I'm good with people, but I'm
Yeah.
also good at music or whatever it may be. So yeah, I think God reveals that and shows you that when you use your spiritual gifts. So yeah,
Yeah, and I think it's also important to kind of be, let's say, proactive. Obviously, it depends on your personality. Like for me, the kind of personality I have, like I'm very extroverted, so I
yeah,
can I'm not like scared of like dealing with people. But I think
yeah,
like obviously when you go, like I mentioned earlier, you can go onto a church website and you can see everything they have to offer. They usually have a place where they show that like, oh, if you want to serve in the church, you can do this, 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 and that. But
mm,
if you see something that you could help with in the church, you can just inquire about it. You can just email someone and speak about how things can be done, because it's not like everything is just set in stone, right? Like they're always like
100%.
there's there are always like avenues that are open, right? Like they like I was speaking about how I went to the connect groups of this one church, and they were telling me how like, oh, there was one connect group and it kind of just started getting big, and then they spoke about it and they decided to split into two different ones, and then those are growing again. And it's like, churches are always expanding. And then I asked today, like, how old is this church? Because I thought maybe, it might be new, it might be like 5 years old or something, and it's 45 years old, right? So it's like
Sure.
it's still
It's
expanding. Like
crazy,
they're
yeah.
always like, yeah,
Mm,
if you feel like you've got something you can offer to the church and it's not quite there, you can go speak to someone, right? And be like,
yeah,
oh, I was thinking that maybe the church could have like even just something as simple as like I'm thinking now, obviously like in the church there's a dearth of like men, like just in general. Like churches are mainly filled with a lot of women, because women are the ones that are coming to church and everything. But men, I don't know. I think
mm,
it's because of the fact, I mean, this probably could be a conversation for another time, but I think it's mainly because of the fact that like churches are a lot like they're a lot like schools where, it's like, oh, sit down and listen to what the pastor is saying. And, like as men, it's not like our primary way of doing things. We don't like just sitting down and
yeah,
listening to like we like doing things with our hands. And it's like,
mm,
you might see something like that and be like, I think it would be awesome to have, like a men's meetup every Thursday or every Saturday or whatever it is, where we go
yeah,
and, we, I don't know, it could even be something as simple as like, oh, we go and we play indoor soccer or whatever it is, right? You find something, you think of, you have ideas. Like I'm just thinking of ideas right now, and you start it, right? Like you
yeah,
start it, and obviously that takes a lot. Like it takes a certain kind of personality, and you don't need to be doing all of that. But like, just inquire, just see, where you can serve, go try out things and see how it goes.
yeah, of course, bro. Like Bible says, Matthew, ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall
Yeah,
find, knock and the door shall be opened. And
open.
100%, bro. Like you gotta go out there as well. And there's a quote that is, if you want something you never had, you gotta do something you never done. And if you've never had a
Yeah,
relationship with God, if you've never encountered Him on a level that you want to encounter Him on, you have to go out there. You have to put yourself out there, whether you're introverted or not. Um, and yeah, like the church is a place where, again, hospitality, like they have to be open, and they are usually open and willing to receive people that are willing to serve. And as you said with men, it's a lot different. But yeah, I feel like if God gives you um that willingness to serve, it's something you should do. And a lot of people run from their calling. Uh, I know I did, definitely. Like I'll be open to admit that. Like so many times when God speaks to me and I just kind of like turn my head. But there's a time where, yeah, you're called to serve and just do it. Because it's only gonna be beneficial to you and it's only gonna reward you. So
Yeah, yeah, I think that's definitely a good place to close. I don't know if there's anything you want to add or if you've said everything you wanted to say.
yeah, I'd say there's one thing I want to add, and that is that your serving is never wasted. I'll say that. I had like some negative experiences serving in certain churches, or you hear the stories of like, oh, like this church just wants my money, or this pastor wants that, or they're greedy and this and that, whatever it may be. Um,
Yeah,
and what I will say is that you're not serving the pastor, you're not serving the man, you're not serving whoever's in charge. Like you're serving the one who's in charge, the only one. And
yeah,
yeah, I always say like God blesses that. He always honors and blesses your serving. So whether you had a really negative experience or whatever happened in your life with serving, always know that it's honored and blessed. That's what I'll close with.
yeah. I think this was definitely a very good conversation, a much needed conversation. Like I
Yeah,
think community in general nowadays is just not valued as much as it should be. But yeah, I think this was an awesome conversation. Our first episode.
first episode.
A bit rocky, a lot of technical difficulties, but yeah,
Sure.
I mean, just we're just getting into this. But yeah, thanks to
Yeah,
everyone for listening. Make sure you guys subscribe, follow the podcast, and yeah, make sure you tune in every week. I don't know which days we're going to be posting, but we'll keep you guys posted. You'll see it. Just
we'll
just
be
subscribe.
consistent,
Just
guys. Don't worry.
yeah, we'll definitely be consistent. One every week at minimum.
For sure. Sure.
But yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. And until next week, we'll see you guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Cheers.